Hey, what's up guys, Mashine here, come back with a brand new video for you guys. A couple months ago, I made a video talking about $100 cash budget for a knife. Today, we're going to be upping that to $200. Let's hop on into it. The first one is going to be that Navaja Marble Fade, coming in at $196 cash price. This one is going to be the best option if you're looking for a marble fade finish. It's a very nice finish on a not so desirable knife, but the truth is, that's really all you're going to be able to get. $200 is not a lot, especially when the way the CSGO market has been moving recently, and I think the Navaja Marble Fade is one that definitely holds a lot of potential, as it will always be a very desirable finish. The sponsor for today's video is Skin Swap. Now, Skin Swap is the premier place for CSGO skins and Rust skins. They've got a trading feature with highly competitive rates, they've got a super easy to use selling feature, and if you're looking to deposit today, you're going to be getting a 40% bonus on your deposit. And the best thing, if you sign up with the link in the description, you're going to be getting a free case worth up to $150. So what are you waiting for? Join today and fill all of your CSGO skin needs. After that, we've got the Flip Knife Blue Steel field tested, coming in at $189 cash. This one's not the most desirable when it comes to the finish, but for a flip knife, it's a pretty decent deal, especially when you consider the blue steel doesn't really matter if you get it in battle scarred, minimal wear, whatever. It's mainly relating to brightness, and it's not going to look chipped on the overall finish for the knife, and therefore I think this is definitely one of the better options when we're talking about flip knives and overall cheaper finishes in general. Now, the third one is going to be the Shadow Daggers Autotronic, coming in factory new. Really tried to prioritize factory new and minimal wear, $191. Now, the Autotronic is one of my personal favorite finishes. The Shadow Daggers are not my favorite, but I think the Autotronic definitely overpowers the ugly look of the Shadow Daggers, but this one's definitely going to be a specific personal choice. Fourth on the list is the Gut Knife Crimson Web minimal wear, $199 cash. Now, for this one, I highly suggest you try and prioritize getting a 0.1 or below on the float, but even if you can't, the minimal wear should be able to make the Crimson Web look at least somewhat decent, but I would highly suggest going for a lower float just because the Crimson Webs do look quite atrocious when you get too high up in that float. Now, the next two are going to be double ups. On the left hand side, we got the Navaja. On the right hand side, we got the Gut Knife, and the first finish is obviously the Doppler. I had to throw it in there. It's such a classic. You're probably going to end up with a phase 3, but the truth is a Doppler finish is still quite valuable. Even though the Navaja and the Gut Knife are obviously some of the cheapest knives, that's the only way you're going to be able to get a Doppler finish, as it's quite expensive. $192 cash for the Navaja or $173 cash for the Gut Knife is a relatively decent deal for one of the better finishes and potentially your favorite finish inside of CSGO. And the next one after that's going to be the Tiger Tooth. Once again, a really nice finish. This one's flipped a little bit because the Navaja is only $166 and the Gut Knife is $187. So for this one, I would highly suggest you pick out whichever knife you like, because $20 difference shouldn't really make too much of an impact, but I really like the Gut Knife and specifically the Tiger Tooth finish on it. I think it looks quite decent and it's a really good budget knife. If you want to go with the Navaja, that's great too, but the Tiger Tooth is a great finish that looks a little bit more expensive than it actually is, at least in my opinion. Now, switching it up a little bit, we have the Bowie Freehand FN factory new. Now, this one is not specifically my favorite. I'm not a big Bowie knife person, but I can definitely see the appeal of it, especially when it's in factory new at only $187. I think it's a great option for anyone who specifically wants a Bowie knife, and more importantly, wants one that looks at least somewhat decent. After that, we've got the Survival Knife Night Stripe in minimal wear, $155, coming in as the cheapest knife on this list. Now, in my opinion, I think the Survival Knife is actually a little bit underrated. It's definitely one that has a little bit of a unique taste, and I will definitely give you that, but the Night Stripe finish is not absolutely terrible. It's not my favorite by any means, but in minimal wear, you're going to get a decent looking knife, especially on the Survival Knife, for only $155. I don't think you can really pass that up. After that, we got the Ursus Knife Damascus Steel in minimal wear, $190. Ursus Knife is also on my list as being one of the better looking knives, and I think the Damascus Steel is actually a really underrated finish. If I had to personally choose a knife off this list, I would say this one's top 3, because Damascus Steel is a really nice finish for not being too expensive, and the Ursus knives overall are one of my favorite. Now, if you're looking for a Huntsman, you're in luck. We're going to go split screen once again. On the left side, we got the black laminate in minimal wear, $194. On the right side, the ultraviolet minimal wear, $182. This one, it's going to be once again a very up to you choice. Obviously, all of this is, but I would highly suggest if you can get a low float ultraviolet, it's probably going to be in your best interest to do that, just because the low float ultraviolets look so good, especially on the Huntsman knife, where you're not going to be seeing a ton of those blemishes and marks, I think personally it's one that I would go for, but if you can't, the black laminate is also a really good alternative. And lastly, to wrap up this list of the under $200 knives, we got the Paracord blue steel in minimal wear. Paracord knife is also one that I really like, and the blue steel finish, like we mentioned earlier, is not the greatest, but it's also not terrible, and for that reason, I think it's definitely one that you should at least consider, and it's right on $200, so it should be in the budget. However, if you're looking for some cheaper or more expensive options, we've got the top three, at least in my opinion, for those. The under $100, the first one is going to be the Shadow Daggers blue steel. You don't have a ton of options when we're talking about under $100 cash, and for $98, the Shadow Dagger blue steel field tested are probably going to be one of your better options. However, if you're still not satisfied with that, we got two more. The next one is going to be the Knife Ultraviolet field tested. You're probably going to end up with a really poor float on this one, which is why I would highly suggest you go for a specific finish that isn't representative of the float, one that varies on brightness rather than varies on the overall crack or blemishness of the skin itself. The Ultraviolet is not one of those, and for $97, you can see why it's so cheap if you check it out in game. Otherwise, we got the Navaja Damascus steel minimal wear, $96. This is one, once again, where it's varied on brightness, and your overall skin is not going to look absolutely terrible if you don't get it in a great condition, but this one's in minimal wear either way. And if you want to up the budget a little bit, under $300, you're going to be giving yourself a very great knife. The first of which is going to be the Gut Knife Fade Factory New, $299, just barely squeaking in, but this one looks absolutely amazing. It's going to be the first actual fade. We had the marble fade earlier. The first actual fade I would say is worth buying on this list, and for that reason, I think it definitely deserves your consideration. Otherwise, we do have the Bayonet blue steel in well worn. Once again, blue steel is not my favorite finish. However, it's a really good budget finish, and you're going to be getting a bayonet knife. The bayonets are not looking very good if you try to go with a different finish at this price point, which is why the blue steel is such a common theme on this list. And finally, to wrap it up, we got the Flip Knife Ultraviolet in minimal wear, $285. If you can get a low float, once again, the Ultraviolets are such a good looking finish and honestly are really underrated in a good float minimal wear. You're probably not going to be able to get like a .08 or a .09, but even if you could get a .11 and salvage it, I think there's honestly a lot of great combinations you can get if you throw on a little bit of a cheaper pair of gloves, and this could be the best knife for you, at least in my opinion, on this list. Now, if you're looking to buy or potentially trade in to get a knife, I highly suggest you head over to today's sponsor. They're going to give you a great selection of items to choose from. And some people ask about a knife as an investment purpose. Remember, it's a game at the end of the day. Not everything you specifically do has to be done with an investment point of view in mind. Most of these knives are not going to lose their value, and I think that's something very important to think about. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.